AITA for making a scene of my adult son and sticking my nose in his marriage. I'm 60 and terrible at texting on mobile devices, so I'm hoping I won't be evaluated on my grammar. Here's some context. My daughter-in-law, 32, and son, 33, have 3 children, ages 3, 2, and 4 months. He persuaded her to be a stay-at-home mom and sell her business by telling her how good of a childhood he had and how happy my marriage was without telling her, which I discovered today, that our arrangement was that everything before 9 a.m. and everything after 5 p.m. was split 50/50. Sunday was my day off, and I was brought out twice a week. To continue the narrative on my previous visit, I observed my daughter-in-law was suffering psychologically, so I, my sister, 55F, and her partner, 53, pooled our resources and paid for a spa weekend for them while we babysat the kids for her birthday last weekend. On Thursday evening, I was ready for the kids to arrive when my daughter called, choking back tears, to tell they wouldn't be traveling because my son's buddy had come to town and he wanted to spend the weekend catching up with his buddies. I probed her a bit and was chatting a little about her position when she revealed that he did no chores, had no date evenings, and she essentially did all of the kid cares since that's what stay-at-home mothers do. I was honestly outraged. I persuaded her to leave me off with the kids and accompany a friend to the spa. I'd even went into my money to offer her your $500 to spend on herself. I asked her to tell me where my son was when she left me off with the kids, and after 5 minutes, she told me the bar. She went to the spa while I went to the bar. She knew I was going and knew my sister/sister-in-law were watching the kids. I went to the pub where he and his buddies were, sat next to them, and asked my son, "Did I fail you as a mother, or was it your father? Because we both believe your spouse came above your dumb drunk friends." The narrative is becoming too lengthy, but to cut a long tale short, I embarrassed him and was barred from a bar. My daughter has stated she will take the kids to her parents when she returns tomorrow, and my son has called me an idiot for embarrassing him and interfering in his marriage. I'm not sure whether I should have remained out. Edit. I just wanted to mention that I'm upset, not because of any judgment of me or my parenting abilities, but because many people are surprised that I care about my daughter-in-law's health and stood up for her against my son's awful behavior. As a mother, my suggestion is to treat your daughter/son/non-binary in-laws the way you would want your children to be treated. Respect is contagious. Story 2. AITA for telling a coworker to mind her business. So I'll provide some context so that folks may attempt to understand why I had this outburst. I am a first-generation immigrant with no relatives in the United States. In 2009, my beloved uncle was deported. My mother was deported in 2011, and I lost both of my grandparents nearly simultaneously in 2012. I have lost communication with certain extended family members, and I have relocated to a distant state with just my boyfriend. I work at a grocery store and usually stay to myself, but lately I've become close to one of the store greeters. Let's call her Susie. She is a 72-year-old lady who, in my opinion, is a diligent worker and a kind person. During my breaks, she began to chat to me. I and everyone else at work knew a lot about her since she loves to talk a lot, but I believe she is lonely. Okay, I'll just get to the point. Susie is a widower who has no children owing to reproductive troubles. But she does have cats. Willie and Bill are their names, and she refers to them as her sons. Susie and I connected over this, and we chat a lot about our cats, and I'd even go over to her house every 2-3 weeks to help clean out and wash her litter boxes. Anyway, we have a colleague named Karen who is the boss's minion and believes she can boss us about, which is very obnoxious. So Karen overheard us talking about Susie bringing her boys to the vet, and I was thinking about accompanying her or my partner. "I didn't realize you people held playdates for kids," Karen said loudly. She knows Susie doesn't have children, so I'm guessing she was inquisitive. Susie, being the angel that she is, said, "Oh, we do. We have playdates with our pets." Karen's expression altered and she became agitated, saying, "Animals aren't kids," which made Susie and me uncomfortable. Susie attempted to shrug it off, saying something along the lines of, "To each their own," but Karen persisted, scolding us and telling us how horrible it was for us to equate children to animals. She went on and on about how she had a relative who had lost a baby and couldn't comprehend hearing people like us referred to animals as children. I was becoming frustrated because Susie seemed to be crying, when Karen added, "But I suppose I shouldn't expect someone who can't have their own children to understand." To say I was stunned, she said, was an understatement. Susie looked upset, so I said, "Karen, Why don't you mind your own seeking business? Karen fussed and puffed about telling the management what I said to her, but Susie eventually took the day off and requested time off. And I'm sure I'll face disciplinary punishment as a result of what I did. But what about Ada? Update. I was let go by this employment, which turned out to be a blessing in disguise. I was treated extremely terribly after involving HR on the advice of many in this thread. I had a horrible feeling if I did that I would be tormented endlessly, since the HR we have is what is known as partnered HR, and they are all about the employer and protecting their business, not the workers. I had talked with Susie, who was first hesitant to escalate the problem, but I told her I was going to handle it on our behalf, and before I knew it, I was being picked on. It's okay, I was let go, and Susie resigned shortly after, and I'm now cleaning her home and cooking for her. I thankfully do not require money. My partner and I knew something like this would occur if I took matters to HR, so they are working OT at the moment, and Susie, being the angel she is, has helped me when needed, which is why I am doing all of her housework to repay her for the assistance she provided this past month. She also talked openly about her late husband, who was an expert in a sector of work I am very interested in, and she has really spoken with many of her late husband's acquaintances, and I now have the opportunity to work my dream job. I am grateful to everyone who complimented me on my bravery in sticking up for my buddy. She is great, and I have no regrets about what transpired. We also spent all of the holidays together, and my buddy Susie seemed to be much happier since leaving that poisonous environment. So thank you all again for your time. I really appreciate it. Story 3. Ada for throwing a tantrum while pregnant. I'm 30 weeks pregnant and have many appointments that are around 4 to 5 minutes apart. My husband fractured his leg during the holidays, and I've been informed I can't drive due to one of my issues, so we've been doing our best to cope. One thing we've done is pay a good buddy $50 and a handmade meal to transport me to appointments. It's worked out well. When I casually mentioned it to my mother, she pitched a tantrum and offered to drive me. I refused since I was content with the arrangement we had with our buddy. Well, my mom knew I had an appointment last week, so she accidentally dropped some items off. I really don't like it when she drops by unexpectedly, so I was irritated just before and insisted on driving me. It seemed a little diva-ish to beg our buddy to stay when she was already there and willing, so I agreed. We were nearly late because she insisted on stopping in the city for a Starbucks. I received horrible news at the visit, and she basically grumbled about how bored she was. People aren't allowed to accompany me to these appointments. It's a clinic rule. She made 5 separate shopping trips as I waited in the van, simply wanting to go home and lie down to comprehend the news. I told her this many times, but it was always, oh, just one thing, just one thing. Then she claimed she was going to stop by a friend's home since they were expecting to see me. I yelled at her. I told her I couldn't and that I needed to go home right now. She remained silent for the remainder of the journey, and as we approached my home, she stated, so, if we don't do things for family, what are we doing? Maybe I'll cancel my trip and won't be able to come assist you the week the baby is delivered. I was taken aback. She's leaving for a trip out of the country shortly, and I expressly informed her that we needed at least 2 weeks alone with the baby. I had no idea about this flight. She booked it the week before I was due to deliver without consulting me. She wanted a place here, then either since she rotates her timeshare, so she was simply expecting she'd stay with us. I blew it. I told her there would be no room for her since I'd requested my MIL to be there for the few weeks leading up to labor, and then she'd be departing the day we returned home to give us our 2-week period, so she'd have to find another somewhere to stay. She raged at me for being a traitor for asking my husband's mother instead of her. I informed her that the whole day was an illustration of why that was the case. Let's not even get started on the international travel aspect of things. We were approximately 15 minutes away from my house at the time, so she urged me to get out of the vehicle and drive away. I sobbed the rest of the way home, and now my sisters and aunts have all messaged me about how I need to apologize to my mother and how I was being nasty and having a tantrum. Ada. Wow. I wasn't expecting so many comments, but I appreciate everyone's feedback and encouragement. Even the Ida's perspectives are valuable to me. I'm going through all of the comments and wish I could respond to everyone, but I just wanted to thank everyone here. Thank you also for my first award. I'm going to sleep on it and make a decision in the morning, but I'm recognizing that the conduct I've grown to accept as usual is fairly heinous, and I don't want it around my daughter, so I'll be preparing an LLC or NC strategy until things change. Also, for those worried, To clarify, the walk was 15 minutes, luckily, not a 15-minute drive with a much longer walk, and I am still encouraged to do light activity for now, so while it sucked and obviously unpound sad walks are awful, it wasn't too damaging to me or the baby.